It was a world superpower for more than 40 years. The annual parade through Moscow's Red Square was a show of muscle. But this was the Victory Day parade this year. Its economy fueled by oil and gas, Russia is becoming rich. And it's rediscovered the confidence to tell the world that it won't be pushed around, least of all by old foes. It was only a quarter of a century ago that the world lived in fear of nuclear annihilation. It was a world with two superpowers at loggerheads, the United States and Russia's empire, the Soviet Union. Well, a lot has certainly changed since then, but as you're about to see, some old Cold War wounds are being opened once more. It's because of this. An American plan to put missile launchers on European soil.
Mission. We have liftoff.
The United States calls it a missile defense shield, a system to detect, then intercept ballistic missiles fired from so-called rogue states.
Negation of target.
Communications acknowledge successful negation of target.
In US eyes, Iran is at the top of that list.
I think right now you have a Europe that's not protected at all against this threat.
But the plan has infuriated the Russians, and it's left Central Europe caught once more between the competing ambitions of two massive powers. The plains of Poland have been a battleground for millennia. Weapons have changed through the centuries, but not the fighting spirit of many of those who have lived on this land. And if there are lessons to be learnt from the past, then chances are Bronisław Novak is well aware of them. He's a lecturer in medieval studies in the city of Słupsk, on Poland's Baltic coast. He not only teaches history, but he reenacts it.
Trudno wyobrazić sobie to, co czuje rycerz walczący w pojedynku, jeśli samemu nie włoży się hełmu, nie opuści przyłbicy, nie podniesie wielokroć tego miecza do cięcia.
Battling his foes may be play acting now, but not that long ago, this 47-year-old was ready for real battle. He was a fighter pilot in the Polish Air Force during the Cold War.
This is a MiG-23. I flew in this plane, fast, very good plane.
For much of his 15-year career until he retired in 1995, Bronisław Novak flew in and out of the Redzikowo base, just outside of Słupsk. The main role of his fighter squadron was to confront any enemies before they crossed the Baltic Sea coastline and into Poland. It was a job Bronisław Novak took seriously, no matter who the enemies may have been.
Dla mnie był to obowiązek żołnierza, który broni kraju przed agresją z zewnątrz. A w związku z tym, jeżeli tym przeciwnikiem byli Amerykanie, to w równym stopniu występowałem przeciwko Amerykanom, jak począwszy od 1991 roku przeciwko Rosjanom, bo zmieniła się tendencja i kierunki polityki polskiej.
Those changes in the early 1990s saw the Soviet Union break up and Poland's Cold War ally suddenly become a potential threat. Today, the only aircraft are stuck up on blocks at the main gate of the base. Nothing but the wind whistles down the runway. Hangars that once concealed state-of-the-art fighter jets are abandoned. It may look like a forlorn and forgotten piece of the Cold War, but this former airbase is becoming a key battleground in a new era of military one-upmanship. For it's here that the United States intends to install an integral part of its missile defence shield in Europe. This site is to host 10 missile interceptors and placed in a series of silos, and to be used, as the Americans tell it, to nullify intercontinental attacks by rogue states. But before anything's been built here, these plans are already opening huge cracks in opinion in the nearby city of Słupsk, in Poland, in fact, right across Europe. For pilot Bronisław Nowak, the base that once helped defend his country could be targeted by a new foe.
Nie mają wątpliwości. Nie mają wątpliwości również i co do tego, że w regionie znajdują się cele strategiczne, które znajdują się z całą pewnością w zasięgu i rakiet, i przede wszystkim na celowniku rakiet rosyjskich.
He may be surrounded by tradition in the town hall, but the mayor of Słupsk, Maciej Kobylinski, has fixed his gaze on the city's future. And one of the keys to that future, the mayor believes, is the missile defence shield. The Americans, he says, will bring investment, and plenty of it, into his community of about 100,000 people. So this is a souvenir?
Yeah. American.
The mayor was taken on a hearts and minds tour of bases and military towns in the United States. He's returned with a flag, some insight, and a whole lot of photos. He left the Americans with his support.
Uważam, że jest pewien element ryzyka, na przykład, że przyjdzie tutaj za tarczą, przyjdzie tutaj sporo zmian. Zmian być może obyczajowych, być może cywilizacyjnych. Tego nie mogę przewidzieć, no ale tak jak powiedziałem, jednak najważniejszym punktem mojej, takiej, a nie tyle decyzji, co stanowiska, leży, wiem, że brzmi to bardzo górnolotnie, ale globalne bezpieczeństwo.
The mayor and his constituents have good reason to be concerned about their security. This was the extraordinary proclamation from Russia's former president, now Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin.
Ведь наш генеральный штаб, наши эксперты считают, что эта система угрожает нашей национальной безопасности. И если она появится, мы вынуждены будем адекватно реагировать. Вот тогда мы вынуждены, наверное, будем перенацелить часть наших ракетных систем на эти объекты, которые нам угрожают. Не мы же их создаем.
We see Russia as a big country, as a serious threat to Poland, and we don't see it as a joke.
Bartosz Beglarczyk is a commentator for Gazeta Wyborcza, one of Poland's largest daily newspapers. In his home city of Warsaw, you need only wander the streets of the old town to be reminded of what happens if threat turns into dreadful action. This all had to be rebuilt after the Nazis destroyed it during the Second World War. When the war ended, Poland was effectively controlled by the Soviet Union for 44 years. Bartosz Beglarczyk believes the missile defence shield would draw Poland and the United States closer together, and that would keep Russia away.
For the first time in the history of Poland, Poland would be a part of the defense system for the United States. Polish soldiers and Polish military would be a part of the defense line. People who defend your house are your friends, and you tend to care for them because they defend your house. It's very simple.
The Germans love to remind the world that they've helped rescue the Czech people once before. This is Liberation Day in Prague, commemorating 63 years since US troops forced out the last German soldiers during World War II. The Czech enthusiasts who have restored these American pieces of history wear their authentic uniforms with a certain swagger. In the crowd wanders the US ambassador to the Czech Republic, Richard W.Graber.
It's also an opportunity to celebrate and to remember the lives that were sacrificed in the cause of liberation and of freedom.
How are you, Mr. Ambassador? Good. Thank you for having us here.
Pleasure.
And what a view. From the embassy grounds, Richard W.Graber has a view of just about everything.
I think this may be the best view of Prague because you get such a wonderful panorama of the castle.
The United States is eyeing off another piece of Czech real estate to build a radar facility as part of the missile defense shield.
Placing the radar facility in the Czech Republic and the interceptors in Poland provides the broadest possible coverage. So you're protecting not only the United States, but almost all of Europe.
The missile defense shield has divided the nation's parliament and the Czech people. Opinion polls suggest about 70% of the population is against hosting the base. This is where the radar station is likely to be based, in the Brody Mountains, about an hour's drive southwest of Prague. When the country was part of Czechoslovakia and the Soviet bloc, this was an army base.
1926.
These days, it's a training ground for Czech soldiers.
Yeah, military area, especially for artillery.
My guide is Defence Ministry spokesman Jan Pejček, and the security here is obvious. Where are we here, Jan? What's this? We're shown a cleared field where the support buildings will be.
Where can be built.
While it may be a small site, the Defence Ministry says the radar will make a big difference to the country's security. Could this area become a target for missiles?
American have bases in 18 European countries and all are targets. Maybe target will be in Czech Republic also.
And that's what worries many of those living in the villages dotted around the site. Jan Niro is the mayor of Trokovets, which is home to about 90 of his citizens. This village leader with a fondness for cowboy ties wants no part of the American plans, calling it a catastrophe, not only for his home, but for Europe.
Takže je tu problém, že nás ten radar nemá ochránit, ale má ochránit americké území. A navíc v Evropě vyvolá nové kolo zbrojení a nebezpečí.
The bucolic atmosphere of Trokovets has been pushed aside for the moment, as the village becomes a staging post for radar-based protesters.
Takže ta vláda, podle mého názoru, musí pryč a já se ze všech sil chci snažit, aby ta vláda buď podala demisi, nebo byla sesazena a radar tu nebyl.
It helps to have popular support. It's good to have popular support. I'm afraid that so much of this has become for local politics. A domestic political dispute is going on in a very closely divided parliament here. And I'm not sure that that's a good thing.
For General Leonid Ivashov, there's an uneasy sense of history repeating in the American plans for a missile defense shield. After all, he built a long career around protecting his country, when it was the Soviet Union and locked in the Cold War with the West. Leonid Ivashov has now retired from the army, but he's still a keen observer of other powers.
Ну, потому что Россия вообще обеспокоена однополярным миром и стремлением Соединенных Штатов к мировому господству. А для того, чтобы овладеть мировым пространством, Соединенным Штатам нужно покорить Россию. Но сегодня мы не ответив на...
This former army chief of staff says Russia's threat to target missiles at Poland and the Czech Republic is not hollow.
Безусловно, на эти объекты будут нацелены наши военные средства, но я полякам, например, говорил, что не думайте, что Россия будет наносить ответный удар только по этим объектам. Первый удар, который мы нанесем, это будет Варшава, вторая – Гданьск и другие.
As national pride in Russia grows, so does the desire to defend the country. And that desire can be found in the very young. 16-year-old Nikita Davidov is a student at Moscow's Sholokhov Kazakh Cadet Corps School. Here they mix academic studies and military training with patriotism, winding its way all through the curriculum. In these boys' eyes, the United States may not be an enemy of Russia, but it's no friend either, and they see the missile defense shield as proof of that.
Я против этого, и думаю, все мои сверстники тоже против. Я думаю, что американцы просто хотят отделить Россию от других стран, которые входили в Советский Союз, то есть настроить плохие отношения к России.
Почему Америка de la luta?
Боятся России.
The project seems unstoppable anyway. In Alaska and California, the interceptor bases are in place already. But the Americans say their defense shield won't be complete without bases in Europe. For all the brinkmanship, the United States has told Russia and its leaders they have nothing to fear. That the shield is protection against Iran.
It's not aimed at Russia at all. And when you think about it, 10 interceptors and a radar against what Russia's arsenal is I mean, it's just sort of nonsense to think that this in any way can do anything to deter Russia.
For the countries of the new Europe, it's a precarious path to tread. To somehow strike a deal with one great power without incurring the wrath of the other.